guys, welcome back to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make Banoffee Tart. Banoffee Tart is an incredible dessert that's made with cookies, dulce de leche caramel, whipped cream, some chocolate, and bananas. However, I'm also adding some strawberries to mine. It is a decadent dessert that's so easy to make with just a handful of ingredients that you probably already have in your pantry. Let's go over them so we can make it. So for the cookie crust, we're going to need some pure vanilla extract, some granulated sugar and confectioner's sugar, or you can just use granulated sugar if that's all you have, some all-purpose flour and some salt, and 3 sticks of butter. Then we're going to need some bananas and strawberries. Strawberries are optional. You could just use bananas because that's traditional. I have some dulce de leche here that I've made, and I'll tell you how I made it in just a minute. And I have some semi-sweet chocolate. So in my pan here, I have dulce de leche. Basically what that is 2 cans of sweetened condensed milk that I bought at the supermarket. I just poured them into a baking pan. I use a loaf pan, but you can use any pan that you like. Put it in a larger roasting pan and fill the roasting pan halfway up with some very hot water. Cover the pan with some aluminum foil and then bake it in a preheated 400-degree Fahrenheit oven for about 2.5 hours or until it becomes caramelized, dark, and thick. Then that's how you know that the dulce de leche is ready. You can do this step 2 to 3 days ahead of time and keep it stored in the refrigerator. This is the step that takes the longest, but it's really, all of it is hands-off work, and you just pop it in the oven and you forget about it for a few hours. And then you're gonna have dulce de leche, and I'm telling you, this stuff is dangerous. You might wanna make a little bit extra. So we're gonna begin by making the crust. Make sure you have a 9-inch round tart pan with a removable bottom. If you don't have one of these, then you can use a springform pan, a 9 or 10-inch round springform pan, also known as a cheesecake pan. That will do too. If you don't have any of these and you still want to make it, that is totally fine. You can make this in little trifle bowls, individual bowls, and just make the shortbread cookies and then just layer everything. But it's basically still going to be the same thing, and it's going to be absolutely delicious. So to make the crust, we're basically making shortbread cookie crust. I'm going to put the butter in my mixing bowl. This is unsalted butter. Make sure that the butter is soft and at room temperature, so just leave it out for about an hour or 2, or pop it in the microwave for about 15 seconds or so. Next, I'm going to add the granulated and confectioner sugar and some pure vanilla extract, about 2 teaspoons. And we're going to mix this together until it's nice and fluffy and incorporated. So once everything is incorporated, then go ahead and scrape down the side of the bowl so that way whatever's stuck on there will get released. Sometimes you have sugar and butter stuck to the bottom. And then we're going to whisk together the dry ingredients. And I'm just going to add the dry ingredients to the mixer and mix everything until a dough is formed. Once the dough is formed, go ahead and transfer it to a work surface and cut it into 2 equal portions. This makes enough for 2 tarts, or you can make 1 tart and the rest you can do shortbread cookies. Or you can just make the 2 tarts, form them in 2 tart pans if you have 2, and freeze one. Once it freezes, then go ahead and wrap it in plastic wrap, and it'll stay fresh in the freezer for like 2 months. Then you're going to press it into the tart pan. So make sure it goes up the sides of the pan as well, and everything is flush and tight together and everything is even. Now I'm going to take the remaining dough and I'm going to make shortbread cookies later on, so I'm just going to leave it aside. At this point, you're going to want to freeze this for at least an hour, or you can do this also a day or 2 ahead of time, because you want it to set and chill and harden a little bit, so that way once you bake it, it doesn't sink into the pan and it actually holds its shape. Once that happens, I already have one in the freezer that I'm going to put in the oven in a second, but make sure your oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're going to bake the tart until it's nice and golden. That's going to take about 30 minutes, but halfway through go in and check on it, because a lot of times what happens is that while it's baking, it creates air bubbles and starts to kind of bubble up. Just go in there with a fork and just pop those bubbles or poke some holes onto the bottom of the crust so the steam can escape, and then let it bake until it's nice and golden, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Okay, so I have a bar of semi-sweet chocolate. I highly recommend that you use either semi-sweet chocolate or dark chocolate for this because the caramel sauce, the dulce de leche, is so sweet that it does need that little bit of contrast to kind of complement it and, make it shine. So go ahead and melt the chocolate either over, a bain-marie, over boiling water, or in the microwave until it's totally melted. Then go ahead and transfer the cookie shell to a serving platter, wherever you're going to put it on, just so that way it's easy for you to handle, and remove the bottom if you can. And it's going to be easier to remove the bottom while the tart is slightly warm. So if you wait until it's cool, you are going to have to struggle a little bit with it. Don't risk cracking the shell. If you have to leave it on, it's okay, just leave it on. Then go ahead and spread the melted chocolate all over the bottom of the tart shell. And now we're going to pour the dulce de leche on top. Actually, if you wanted to, you can wait for this chocolate to set completely. You can pop it in the refrigerator for about 10-15 minutes or in the freezer for that time until it sets, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm just going to pour the dulce de leche on top and carefully hold on to it while you spread it. The last thing you want is for the tart to just fly off of the pedestal. That looks perfect. I'm going to set this aside, and now we're just going to make the whipped cream and slice the berries and the bananas, and we're going to put the whole thing together. So for the whipped cream, homemade whipped cream is really easy to make. It's just 3 ingredients. You need heavy whipping cream that's really cold, so take it straight out the refrigerator. You could even put it in the freezer for about 10-15 minutes, and that'll help it whip up faster. You're going to need some powdered sugar and vanilla extract. That's it. We're basically going to put everything in the mixing bowl, and we're going to whisk it until the cream is made, until it's nice and thick. The whipped cream is ready. All that's left now is to chop up the fruits. Again, strawberries are definitely not traditional. Banoffee is made strictly with bananas, but I like to switch things up a little bit. I did have some strawberries that I wanted to use, so I am going to add them to this, but if you want to keep it very traditional, leave them out and just use bananas. And these are not the freshest strawberries, but if you're watching this right when it releases, we're in a quarantine state right now, so we're really not going out to do groceries as often as I usually do. So I'm just going to use what I have. They're going to be underneath the cream, so it doesn't matter. I'm just going to cut them into thin slices. And if you don't have bananas or strawberries and you want to make this, and maybe you have some frozen fruit like frozen cherries or even some frozen berries, I wouldn't really recommend using frozen fruits in this unless you're going to make sure to drain them really well because they release a lot of liquid. You could also leave the fruit out if you want. We give you lots of options on this channel. Now I'm just going to slice up the bananas. That's it. Now we're just going to arrange the fruits on top of the caramel. Some people like to put the bananas or the fruit underneath the caramel. That's an option too. You can do that as well. And now it's time for the whipped cream. So you can take all this whipped cream and just dollop it on top and leave it very rustic looking. But if you do have a pastry bag and if you have a star attachment, then you can go ahead and pipe rosettes or stars on top, and that's what I'm going to do. So when you're filling a pastry bag, make sure not to fill it up all the way up to the top. Halfway is just fine. Otherwise, while you're piping the whipped cream out, it's going to start leaking out of the top, and then you're going to have a mess. And I'm going to do little rosettes. Now at this point, you can serve it just as is. It is ready. But if you want to take it up a notch, if you have any pistachios that you want to grind up and sprinkle on top, that's going to add a really lovely pop of color. And if they're salted, that's even better. You could also do any nuts, walnuts or even almonds. You could even sprinkle some toffee bits on top of them, like crumble some toffee bits. My favorite thing to do is just to put some chocolate shavings on it. Now I just have some semi-sweet chocolate. I'm just going to put some shavings of chocolate on top using a peeler. And if the chocolate is sliced slightly soft or a little bit warm, you can make ribbons out of it. Isn't that gorgeous? I mean, who would not want to see that at the dinner table? Now, like I said, I came up with this recipe. It was one recipe that really was on my list to share with you guys because it is a traditional European dessert. It's very popular in Greece and it's served in many different ways, like parfait style or just like this as a tart. Most of the time, the crust is made with crumbled up cookies, digestive biscuits, or even graham crackers here in America. So use what you have. If you do not have these ingredients, use something else. But I came up with it because since we're in a quarantine and I did have condensed milk in my pantry and I had all the other ingredients, I thought, why not share an elegant recipe with you. Easter is around the corner and this is perfect because you can make most of the parts ahead of time and then just put it all together the day that you're going to be serving it. I do suggest that you chill it for at least an hour so everything can set and come together. And then when you go to slice it, you're going to have the most decadent looking thing on earth. So keep in mind that this dessert looks beautiful once you put it together. It's a whole other story once you start cutting into it. It just starts to ooze out the caramel and the fruits do start to fall a little bit. The whipped cream also melts a little because this is fresh whipped cream, but it is going to be the most magnificent thing that you've ever put in your mouth. I'm going to go in and take a bite. Make sure I get a little piece of everything. Oh my God. Somebody please come take this entire thing away and save me from not being able to finish my clothes tomorrow morning. This thing is amazing. It's like heaven in every bite. You get a little bit of the crisp buttery cookie that has a thin layer of semi-sweet chocolate on top. That dulce de leche is just dangerous, pure evil. It's so good. And then the whipped cream lightens everything up. The berries and the bananas come together just to make the perfect combination. This is probably going to be the best dessert you've ever had in your whole entire life. Trust me. Head on over to the website, dimitrasdishes.com, print the recipe out, make it, share pictures with me on Facebook and Instagram. I'd love to see how you decided to make this. Thank you guys so much for spending time with me today. I'll see you all next time. Yes, us.